This is the Paltalk News Network.
News Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of Paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4 million unique users on demand on iTunes and on YouTube and on my blog, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you're encouraged to post your comments, whether you agree with yours truly or not. No retribution. And thanks to our good friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we're syndicated to an additional 12 million households. I am your host, Gary Baumgarten. I welcome you to the show, and I remind you, as I always do, to go to our news site, PaltalkNewsNetwork.com. Check it early, check it often, just like voting in Chicago, to see stories that you may or may not see, hear, or read in the mainstream media. If you checked it this morning, and you go to the front page this afternoon, you're going to see a completely different list of stories because there's just been so much happening in the news today. But our top story today was and remains the call by the New York chapter, the New York State chapter of the National Organization of Women, or for Women, once a supporter of New York Governor David Paterson for his work on violence against women, now turning their collective backs on the governor and telling him, it's time for you to step down. You've already said you're not going to run for election for a full term. Get out of Albany and let's get somebody else in there who cares about women, after learning that the governor's senior advisor, David Johnson, was accused of assaulting a woman, and that the governor had directed 2 state officials to maybe dissuade her from going forward with her domestic violence complaint against David Johnson. Marsha Pappas, the state president of the National Organization for Women, is with us now live. Marsha Pappas, welcome to News Talk Online on the Paltalk News Network.
Thank you for having me on today.
Great to have you. What's going on in the air or in the drinking water there in Albany that a guy who was so highly respected was on the right side of this issue? As soon as he becomes governor, it seems whoever becomes governor, whether they were previously the attorney general or whatever position, and highly respected, gets into the office and does stupid things like this.
Well, I think what's going on here is an extreme lapse of judgment on the governor's part. We're very disappointed in what's happened here. As you mentioned, the governor has always been a champion for women's rights. We know that during his time as a senator, he sponsored and supported many pieces of legislation that would help women and victims of domestic violence. So for this to now be happening at this point in time, it's sad, it's disheartening, it's upsetting, and certainly I think, we have no other choice once we saw the article about his staff calling the victim, that we feel that in the best interest of New Yorkers and women and himself, actually, that he should step aside and let the New York government continue on with their work, the legislature continue with their work. There's lots of work to be done down there, and we're not so sure that the governor at this point in time, with this dark cloud over him, would actually be able to accomplish anything.
Well, let's talk not so much about David Paterson's political future, but the issue of domestic violence.
Okay.
How difficult, Marsha Pappas, is it for women to come forward when they've been victimized, as this woman alleges she has been?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this is the larger part of the story, and that is that many victims do not report the abuse that they have endured. We know that 1 in 4 women are victims of violence at the hands of someone that they know. We know that 1.3 million women are assaulted every year in this country. Unfortunately, those incidences are not reported. And one of the reasons, there are many reasons, but one of the reasons that women do not report those incidences is that there is a fear of retribution by the abuser. And so a lot of these situations go unreported. And we're here to say that when we heard about the possibility that the governor may have interfered with the victim seeking justice in court, it reminded us, and I think it reminds many women, and certainly the victims of violence, it reminds them of what's going on in their lives every day, and that is the fear of reporting these incidences to the authorities because they won't be believed, or there will be a punishment, more punishment from the abuser. So it's a very, very difficult situation for victims of abuse.
Well, I would imagine that in this case specifically, and we've not talked to the alleged victim, but to get this kind of pressure placed upon her after courageously coming forward after allegedly being victimized by a top aide to the governor must be a chilling effect on her directly. But what kind of a message does this send then to the women who are so already reticent to step forward when they are so victimized?
Well, again, I think, most victims of domestic violence are so beaten down that it takes a lot of courage for them to step forward. So what this does is it sends a further message to those victims that if you want to seek justice, that there's a good possibility that you're just barking up the wrong tree, because we're going to do everything we can to make sure that you don't report that injustice to the courts. And I think when we're looking at a situation where we have people like the governor or people in positions of power, we're also looking at a situation where they abuse their power. Certainly it's more, it's equally as difficult for a woman to report the abuse when it is someone who is not in a position of power, but when we see individuals who are clearly in a position of power, it certainly sends another chilling message to people around the state that, we don't really care that you get justice. We just want to cover everything up. And but we're hoping that by speaking out about this very clearly, whether it's the governor or whether it's just Joe Schmo down the street, we want them to know clearly that we're paying attention, and we're demanding from our legislators that they pass legislation that's going to be effective and have some teeth for women.
Well,